What is happening with people who play games?
I'm at the club.
So I don't understand when someone is wrong about something, why they can't just come out and say, oh, shit, I was wrong about that. That's my bad. Thank you for educating me. I appreciate it. I'll take that L. That's me. Hey, I look dumb for a minute. It's all good. I honestly do think I know, and it's a pride thing. The fear of being embarrassed is so much greater than just taking the L and saying you're wrong and accepting that you're wrong. You know what I mean? So there's been this huge discussion that's blowing up on Twitter that I've seen from our good old friend Reforge Gaming.
See, you're inserting your own definition.
And we got some clips here from the homie Astro Cyborg. He always comes, he or she, I don't know, always comes in clutch with the clips on Twitter. So we're just going to jump into some of these. We're going to listen to them. I'm going to give you my feedback. You know what the deal is, so let's go.
Spider-Man's absolutely an open-world action RPG. Yeah, that's an open-world action RPG. I think that's fair to say. Ghost of Tsushima's open-world action RPG. Sure.
He can't even fucking...
No. Oh, you're so wrong. What is going on? An open world action RPG? No.
RPG will be compared to D&D. It's the more hardcore fans that you probably won't agree on some things, which defines an RPG. But isn't this why we have different RPGs?
Yeah. What you're failing to understand here, Reforge, is there's a thing called subgenres. And what it comes down to, I'm going to break this down a little bit later in a couple other clips that we get to, but it's broken down so that consumers, you and I, anyone that plays video games, they know what kind of game they're getting. And if you're slapping the term RPG on everything, there's a lot of people that don't like playing RPGs. So if you're just willy-nilly throwing this around, then you're not creating the genres that define each type of game.
You have CRPG, you have ARPG.
Subgenres. Okay, and they're all subgenres of an RPG. How do you not see this? I don't understand how people don't see this. In your own logic and what you're explaining here, you're literally explaining a subgenre of RPG.
I think we should have WRPG. I think we should have Western RPG and JRPG because I think there's a difference in style.
That is the first and probably only thing that I agree with Reforge Gaming on. I think there should be a Western RPG, JRPG, just to kind of separate that a bit more.
And there's a difference in what you do. I don't think JRPG is at all meant to seem like Japanese-based RPGs are somehow less than. I think they're different, and I think that's important to know.
I agree with that.
Just like calling something an action RPG does not mean it's like less than another RPG.
Right.
Ghost and Spider-Man are definitely not RPGs. Sure they are.
In a weird way, it was almost like I had to sort of fool my mind into believing that it wasn't retarded. And by the end of the whole thing, I was like, wait a minute, you know? I flushed so much out, how am I going to jumpstart it up again? It's just like...
They're not, but they're really, really not.
You have level, you have skills, you have abilities, you change exactly what you're doing. Those are markers of an RPG.
No. Right over here, the Grizzly. I don't know, what is this? The Grizzly Ancient says it best right over here. RPG elements. And that's the whole crux of everything. It wasn't until like Call of Duty started to implement leveling and leveling guns and doing all this stuff that everyone started to put RPG elements in their game. And that's what you're not understanding. You're either failing to understand this, Reforge, or you're just too proud to admit that you're wrong on this.
They literally call themselves that, do they not? I would imagine Spider-Man does. I mean, I could be wrong. But
And you are.
it classifies itself as an action RPG. Open world action RPG, the reason why we have to call it that is why the category is pointless without bright defining lines.
It's not an open world action RPG.
No, I don't agree with that. I think at this point when you hear RPG, you assume you will be leveling up to some degree.
And you do in any type of RPG. There is leveling up. That's one of the main core things. That's an element of the RPG experience.
There will be some semblance of a skill tree with abilities, and that's pretty much it. And I think that that's okay. I think that's fine. I don't think you need bright lines for stuff like that.
But you do.
Let's open world action. Yeah, they don't have it classified on here. They're just talking about it.
Hey, let me tell you something. I'll look at you, but when I turn my head, you better be in a lab coat. Because you're talking about
RPGs.
Now, if you're not in a lab coat, you have to stop talking. Would you look at that?
Because it's not an RPG.
On the Spider-Man, I'm looking on the Spider-Man Steam page.
Imagine that. Now imagine being wrong about something and just admitting you're wrong and moving on. You wouldn't have people making videos like I am. You wouldn't have people doing live streams covering these nonsensical, incorrect takes.
Strategy RPG. Just because there are levels and skill trees does not make it an RPG.
Correct.
You're not the definer of RPG, though. The gaming community and gaming developers are I think they are collectively the definer. And say, actually, that you are not. A single person cannot be the arbiter of this.
No shit.
We have to have understanding. And right now, we have understanding.
You are absolutely right. We do have understanding, and we understand that the games that you listed that you're dying on this hill for are not classified as an RPG. You even went to the Steam page of Spiderman and looked it up, and you couldn't find anything about an RPG on their details page. That should tell you it's okay to be wrong about things. It's okay to say, hey, I admit I'm wrong. That's my bad. Hey, I look like a dumbass right now. It's all good. I accept it. Let's move on. There's nothing wrong with that.
When someone says action RPG, I know what they mean. Now, you can straighten your
No, I don't think you do.
glasses and say, actually, that's not an RPG. But with all due respect, nobody cares about that.
And that's really interesting and ironic that you're saying that, because you're the one that's straightening your glasses and saying, actually, everything's an RPG. Spider-Man's an RPG. Ghost of Tsushima's an RPG. You're actually doing it. It's the self-awareness is null and void here. It's crazy.
Like, pedantically defining bright lines of what is and isn't an RPG doesn't lead to a greater understanding or greater communication.
It literally does. It completely lets someone understand what they are getting into.
It's just arguing for the sake of arguing.
No, I think he's arguing just for the sake of arguing.
When someone says that Spider-Man or Horizon is an action RPG,
They're not.
I know exactly what they mean.
With all due respect, what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck is this? I know it's not my word.
Ozzy.
I'm a great fucking analyst.
Ozzy.
But they're not. They're action adventures. They are action adventure games. That's what they are.
I'm not confused. I'm not like, well, that's strange. I know exactly what they're saying.
Then you have a false understanding of what an RPG actually is. You don't know what an RPG actually is then. You're admitting that.
We're having an understanding, which means we don't need to adjust definitions or get pedantic about it.
You're right. We don't have to adjust any type of definitions. They're pretty clear cut. And everything that you're trying to argue falls under subgenres that have RPG elements in them.
That's why I think this discussion's worth having, because it's like some of y'all get so narrow, it's like, well, that's just disruptive to the conversation. So I can say that Cyberpunk is both a shooter and an RPG, and that shouldn't be confusing to anybody.
It's really not confusing to anyone except yourself, and you're causing confusion to other people, and especially, I guess your audience that you're pandering to here. You're the one that's causing the confusion because you are confused yourself. What it comes down to is the main core gameplay loop of a game. Cyberpunk is a shooter, an open world shooter with RPG elements attached to it, because you are taking on the role of V. You're not given a choice to choose a role, to role play as something.
That should not be confusing to anybody. If that's confusing, you're being willfully confused, like you're choosing to be confused. That's very straightforward. It's like, oh, it's an RPG. That means there's skills, there's skill points, there's abilities. I level up. Oh, it's a shooter? Yeah, one of the main ways you can play the game the entire time is with guns. It's a shooter. Now, you can avoid the guns and play with a sword or a hammer. That doesn't mean it's suddenly not a shooter. There's plenty of games you can play with guns that you can play pacifist. The ability to play pacifist doesn't mean it's not a shooter.
All right, let's move on to the next clip here that Astro Cyborg provided.
Elements. The Office, Parks and Rec, Modern Family, these would be considered dramedies. We're sort of creating hybrids. Why? Well, because that's how you define something. You grab its classifications, its qualifications, its identity markers,
its elements,
and you try to classify it. What kind of rock is this? What kind of plant is this? What kind of mammal is this? You would look at it and you would try to come up with all the classification. No one's confused when someone says Horizon Forbidden West is an action RPG. No one's like, what do you mean? I don't know. RPGs are tabletop dice rolling games.
No one is confused because no one would actually identify the game as an action RPG. They would say it's a third-person action-adventure game with RPG elements. That's how they would describe Horizon. Any of them. Okay? That's how they would describe Spiderman, Ghost of Tsushima. That's how they describe it. Your definition confuses everybody. And that's why everyone has a hot take on your opinion, because it's so wrong and you're dying on this hill for nothing.
Games where you determine the outcome of the story. I'm really confused. Does that happen in Horizon Forbidden West? Nobody's confused by that. We all know what it means.
But let's move on from this clip to the next one. Here we go. Astro Cyborg.
Saying that Borderlands is not an RPG, it's a looter shooter. Why do we need to draw those categories?
The reason why we draw the categories, like I said earlier in the video, it's because it comes down to the gameplay loop. The gameplay loop is shooting, pew pew, and looting. Give me the guns. The RPG, leveling up, skill trees, all that is elements of an RPG. That's why it's still defined as a looter shooter with elements of RPG. You strip away the RPG elements, and it's still a looter shooter.
How do those categories help? Because I feel like it's
boy.
Both. I don't feel like, well, because it's a looter shooter, it can't be an RPG.
And there lies the problem right there, ladies and gentlemen. There's too much feeling going on instead of thought. I feel like this. I feel like that. Instead of, I think, or this is how I think. That's the problem right there. But let's move on to the last thing that I want to show you here, from Alex. We have Necrogen trying to post a definition of an RPG and highlight, and basically trying to tell Alex he's wrong. Alex says, you cannot make Spider-Man a chaotic evil character. You're not playing a role. And we got Minxy1 down here, who posts action adventure game. It says it right there under the Spider-Man description. And you know what? When that pops up, Reforged saw that when he looked up the definition, that it says open world third person action adventure. And he still decided to die on the hill of it being an RPG. He's either being willfully ignorant and saying the things on his live streams just to be a grifter and pander to an audience, or he's legit not understanding. In which case, that's sad. In both cases, in my opinion, it's sad. But that's really all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. I know other channels have covered it, but I definitely wanted to get on here and cover it. I got a couple more gameplay videos that's going to be coming out later on this, starting next week, actually. And yeah, that's all I really wanted to cover. If you liked the video, please down below, let me know. Do all the things. Let's have some discussions down there in the comment section. Hit the like button. I absolutely appreciate that more than anything. And as always, it's been your boy. It's been real, and I'm out. Later.
I'm at the